Welcome, everyone, to the latest edition of the Ultimate Cleveland Guardian Show, part of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show family. Today, we talk about what could have been, but what wasn't. The Guardians win the first two against the Orioles at home and then drop the final two games of the series. We've talked about this before, Zach. You never want to end with that bad Sunday. We ended with a bad Sunday this time.
We do. Adam, do you remember the greatest comeback in baseball history 23 years ago today?
That's right. This is the anniversary. It was against the Orioles, the Rangers. Why can't I remember?
Seattle Mariners.
Oh, my God. How did I
Sunday
forget
Night
that?
Baseball.
That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing that I forgot that.
I just always wonder what outsiders remember about those great Indians teams in the 90s and early 2000s. And boy, that memory is as good as any.
Yeah, it is. We'll get to that. It's all coming back. 15-14.
That's right.
At least I remember the score when I couldn't remember the opponent. All right, it's all coming up on today's Ultimate Cleveland Guardian Show. That'll be eating at me all day that I said the Orioles and Rangers instead of the Mariners. How did I forget that? Yesterday, by the way, having nothing to do with the Guardians, was the anniversary of Tom Seaver getting his 300th win. And I was at that game at Yankee Stadium. I was 14. And it was a cool moment. I don't even know if I kind of knew that was happening when I went to the game that day. I think I was just randomly going to a Yankee game because, you didn't have that access to information in 1985. So I don't know. But anyway, we'll get to the anniversary of that. Well, let's get to that right now because that's good. That's fun before we get to
you're toggling my memory because yesterday was also the anniversary, I think 28 years of what I think it's the greatest catch I've ever seen. Kenny Lofton scaling the center field wall like Spider-Man and bringing back BJ Surhoff's would have been go-ahead home run or game-tying home run in the 8th inning against the Orioles.
Right.
In 1996. It was, I remember I did an oral history on that years back and just getting everybody's reaction because you had guys in the bullpen looking up like, wait, where did Kenny Lofton come from?
Right.
I've never seen anything like that. And a reminder that he should probably be in the Hall of Fame, or at least should have earned a better chance of having some debate over whether he should be in the Hall of Fame.
That was weird how he went off the ballot so quick. I wonder if you have all these committees now. They used to be the Veterans Committee. I can't remember what it's called now, but
yeah,
you wonder if he's a guy because we've seen players of his style that have gotten in, like Tim Raines, those type of players, and he deserved more consideration than he got. And I wonder if that'll come back again. I mean, Albert Bell was off. I know everybody hated him, but that should be a non-factor when deciding whether a guy's a Hall of Famer. And I know some of the advanced numbers on him aren't as good. He didn't play the field well, but I don't know. I was surprised he was so quickly off the ballot as well because for a while he was the most feared hitter in baseball.
Well, you had the CC Sabathia Cleveland Hall of Fame induction over the weekend, and so a lot of those guys were back, Lofton included, and it just made me think about you could think back to those 90s lineups, and so many of those guys would have been Hall of Famers or should have been Hall of Famers. If Manny Ramirez doesn't get popped for PEDs late in his career, he's a slam dunk. If Albert Bell doesn't have major hip injuries cutting his career short, he's probably a Hall of Famer. Kenny Lofton could have been a Hall of Famer. The Omar Vizquel conversation is out there. So there's so much talent, but also what Lofton did, he was so well-rounded, and that deserved a better discussion because I think we're more apt to vote guys like that in now. It used to just be, do you have 3,000 hits? Do you have 500 home runs?
Right.
And those standards they've changed. And I actually think, CC Sabathia is an interesting discussion too, because, he won 250 games. I don't know the next pitcher who's going to do that or how many more in the future will. The way pitching has changed. I mean, we look at this current Guardians team, and it's not very common for a starter to go 6 or 7 innings, and CC Sabathia did that every time he pitched for almost 20 years.
I mean, I don't know if we're going to see many pitchers get to 200 wins, let alone 250. I mean, so Justin Verlander is actually at 260. And he'll be the last. My guess is he's the last one. I don't think we'll ever see anybody get to 260 again. The only other two pitchers active in Major League Baseball with over 200 are at the back end of their careers, obviously. Max Scherzer is 216, and Clayton Kershaw is at 210. Garrett Cole is fourth among active pitchers in wins. Do you want to guess how many he has?
164.
148.
Wow.
And that's fourth.
Thanks for nothing, Pirates.
Right. I mean, is he even going to get to 200? I don't think so. I mean, maybe.
Yeah, it's hard.
It depends how much longer he pitches. He's Garrett Cole's 33. The next highest total of anybody under 35, Sonny Gray with 108, but he's 34.
Wow.
Aaron Nola, 101 at 31. The highest amount of wins for a pitcher under 30, active pitcher under 30. Let's see. I got to go way down. Herman Marquez of the Rockies, believe it or not, is 29 years old. You know how many wins he has?
It's 83.
65. I mean, it's crazy. So, yeah, I think Verlander's the last guy to get 250.
Yeah.
And I think 200 is now – I don't even want to say 200 is the new 300. I mean, I don't even know if that's going to be the case. 150 might be the new 300.
Yeah. I mean, so I had a fun back and forth with CeCe about that because pitching has changed so much, and he hung on long enough in his career. He pitched through 2019 that he saw this evolution taking place.
Sure.
But by then he had reinvented himself. You know, he came up as a 20-year-old pumping 97, 98 past guys. And then you look up and the way he beat Cleveland in the playoffs in 2017 was with junk and just command. And so it's interesting. And then I look at the mound on Sunday and you've got Corbin Burns, who looks like one of those big workhorses who should give you 200 innings and 200 strikeouts every year. And you look at Gavin Williams on the other side and you're like, he should be that guy eventually as well. And so those guys are few and far between now. And pitching has changed so much. We've seen that here in Cleveland where can Ben Lively just get through 5? Can Joey Cantillo just get through the lineup twice? And that's where we are.
Yeah. If you look at, the innings pitched leader in baseball is actually Seth Lugo of the Royals at 150 and a third. He's got a shot to get 200 innings.
I mean, it was, I think, 2018, Kluber, Carrasco, maybe it was 2017. One of those 2 years, it was Kluber, Carrasco, Bauer, and I think Clevenger all got to 200 strikeouts. It must have been 2018. And they weren't quite there in innings because I think Bauer got hurt down the stretch, but at least one or two of them got to 200 innings. And no one had ever had 4 starting pitchers with 200 strikeouts in a season. So that was like the last we'll ever see of that, of a rotation that just had 4 or 5 guys you could just trot out there all season long and they'd give you 6 or 7 innings every single start. It just doesn't happen.
No.
And
you're lucky if you have 2 of those guys that can get you 6, 7 innings.
And that's why, tying it back to Sabathia, like I think you'll see he's on the Hall of Fame ballot for the first time this winter.
Yeah.
And I would think he would get in either his first or his second try. And I think enough voters will realize like the ERA is 3.74. It's not like what Greg Maddux and those guys were doing back when, but he's like the last of his breed. I mean, there's you just read the names and the numbers. Like there are very few guys like that who exist anymore.
Yeah. No, he's going to get in. My guess is he doesn't get in first ballot, but I think you're right. Second year, probably he gets in.
1,000 strikeouts helps too.
Yeah. Yeah. I really think the way he reinvented himself, because I felt like he was kind of borderline there for a while, and then he reinvented himself at the end and had a few good years again. And I felt like that kind of put him over the top, at least in my mind. I don't know, how the voters will feel. One last, well, we started this conversation with the greatest comeback ever. And so let's get back to that for a minute before we get to what's going on the field currently. I remember watching that, what was it? The Bills and the Oilers, the playoff game where it was like 28-7-0 or whatever at halftime. I didn't even watch the second half of that game until, I threw it on maybe late and the comeback was on. Did you give up on that Indians game at the time?
I did, but I was in school and it was a Sunday night. So how am I going to benefit if it's 14-2 in the seventh inning and I've got to wake up at 6:30 in the morning to go to math class? So I bailed on it, but I mean, I've rewatched the game countless times. I've written about it. I remember talking to. It was fun talking because what happened was both teams emptied their benches. It's a blowout. Yeah. It's I think not a getaway day, but I think at least one of the teams was headed elsewhere the next morning. Or that night. So, you've got Eddie. That's why Eddie Taubensee is in the lineup holding up Kenny Lofton. It's why Holbert Cabrera was part of it. It's why, the Mariners had backups in the field. And I remember talking, those were the best guys to talk to about that because someone like Eddie Taubensee or Rich Rodriguez, who I think pitched an inning in the game, they were awesome because that's one of the greatest moments of their career. So it was so much fun. I think it was Omar Vizquel's son's first day as the bat boy, and what a memory for him. I remember talking to Mike Bassick, who ended up. Dave Burba got shelled. Mike Bassick comes in and goes 6 innings of relief and gives up 7 runs, and yet he goes back in the clubhouse after the game, and everyone is toasting to him and celebrating him. He's like, I've never been thanked for giving up 7 runs before, but he chewed up all those innings and it bought them time to come back. So just insane. And it speaks to just those lineups and what they could do. And that was a different team because that was the last year of contention. It was 2001. A lot of guys had left. You had Juan Gonzalez in there for a year. You had Marty Cordova in there for a year. Russell Branyan, I think, maybe hit a home run in that game. It was a different team, but they still just mashed and had very little pitching at that point. So, 15-14 was a believable score for them.
Yep. And Holbert Cabrera got the game-winning hit to score Kenny Lofton. And that was it. Great comeback. At the end. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say that Mariners team won 116 games.
Right.
It was the best season of all time. If they don't choke away that game, no team had ever won more than 116. So that's what kept them from being the winningest team of all time.
It's amazing. Speaking of amazing feats, the White Sox have now lost 20 in a row before we get to the Guardians. This is crazy. They're going to finish it, I think, as the worst team ever.
Yeah. They're 27-87. I mean, I don't. It's sad. I don't know how else to describe it.
I wonder what the most, back in the day when there was just the American League and the National League, the worst team would be way, way, way out of first. But since they've gone to 6 divisions, I wonder what the most games out of first a team has ever been, because the White Sox are 41.5 games out of first right now, which I don't know that I've ever seen since it's gone to 6th division. I mean, the next worst in baseball is the Marlins and the Rockies, who are both 24.5 out, which is hideous, but 17 games better than what the White Sox are.
Yeah, I mean, if you figure the Guardians will win between 95 and 100 games.
Yeah.
And the White Sox are surely headed toward that 120 loss mark.
Yeah, like a 60-game division lead.
Yeah, that's insane. Now, they go to Oakland tonight. And they better win there because, they get the Cubs next weekend. But then they go Yankees, Astros, at Giants.
Oh, my God.
I don't know. I kind of want to see this thing.
What's the record? Is it 26? That Orioles team started the season? I mean, the modern record. They haven't won a game since the All-Star break. The streak started right right before the All-Star. The last time they won a game was July 10th. It's been almost a month.
The one team that seems to get them healthy is the Guardians, but they don't play again until, I think, early September.
Yes, but even in the last Guardian series, the Guardians still won 2 of 3. Let's see, the last series that they won, they beat the Rockies, another terrible team. They took 2 of 3 from the Rockies, June 28th through the 30th. That's the only series they've won. Let's see, they beat Boston in a series in the beginning of June. And then they beat Washington in a series in May. They took 3 out of 4 from the Guardians. So they won back-to-back series against the Guardians and Nats in the middle of May. Since then, they've won 2 series. And remember, they were 14-30, which is bad, but not insanely bad. They were 14-30 on May 15th. So since then, they've gone 13-50. So they've lost 57 of their last 70 games. That's got to be the worst stretch of baseball ever.
I believe. Yeah. They can't get the number 1 pick.
Oh, God.
The way the draft lottery works. They're ineligible. So congrats on your. I mean, I guess then you can't call this tanking even.
No.
They're just that bad.
No. All right, we got to take a break. We got to get to the Guardians on the field. Let's talk about FanDuel first. Folks, FanDuel, listen, there's lots of sports going on right now. Baseball, preseason football is starting up. Whatever you're looking for, they've got you covered at FanDuel. So get on over there now. And in fact, go to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. All customers will get a boost or a bonus this summer. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, Zach. So Guardians get off to a great start against the Orioles. They win the first 2 games, but they lose the last 2. Bad pitching the last 2 days. Gavin Williams really struggled. Want to get into that. Back to only 23 games over 500. They do still have the best record in baseball as the Phillies have been struggling of late. The Yankees have played a little better here. But the Orioles and Yankees are both 67-46. The Guardians are 67-44. The Twins, who have won 4 in a row, are 4.5 back. The Royals are 5 back. Both those teams are playing well. They both won 7 of their last 10. But let's get specifically to the Guardians and what happened the last 2 days. And even more specifically, let's talk about Gavin Williams, who, although he had a ton of strikeouts, gave up a ton of runs and a ton of hits. What'd you think of his performance overall?
Yeah, disappointing, I think, given the stuff. I mean, the first couple innings, he's hitting 99, 100.
Yep.
And you're thinking this is the guy that was the top 25 prospect. This is the guy who had the makings of a future ace. He hung a few curveballs. They got whacked. That's a really good lineup that you have to have your best stuff against. And he just couldn't put it together. It's difficult with him because he missed critical time. It's not even the fact that he missed 3 months. It's when he missed that time. He was ramped up, and then in mid-March, he has to start over. And I think I've talked to guys who have missed the beginning of a season, and it's almost like it takes twice as long to get back because you don't have the normal progression. And your goal is to just hurry back and get back, and you think it's going to be smooth sailing after that. Whereas in spring training, you know what the timeline is. So you're taking it steady. You know that if you don't have your A stuff on March 6th, that's okay, because like that's why all this time is built in. So with him, he's made 7 starts, and if it was 7 starts starting on March 28th or whatever it was, it would be mid-May, and you'd be thinking, okay, well, he's not quite in mid-season form yet.
Right.
So the goal with him is to make sure that when Tanner Bibee's dealing with shoulder tightness, or Alex Cobb and Matthew Boyd are returning from major injuries, and those guys and Lively and whoever else is in the rotation, you're not sure if they can get you 5 or 6 innings. Gavin Williams is supposed to be the guy who is in peak form because it's June for him, even though it's mid-September on the schedule. So that's still possible. The stuff is there. That's encouraging. I think he just needs to. It's the mechanics. It's the figuring. It's like the in-start problem solving, understanding why he's hanging that curveball, understanding why his command isn't as sharp as it should be, and I think that just comes with reps, and he hasn't had the reps.
Yeah, you're right. And the hope is that because, as you said a couple times there, the stuff is there. He is extremely talented. It's not an accident he's averaging about 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. I mean, that's serious business right there. Not a lot of pitchers can do that. But he's making mistakes, as you referenced. And it's costly. It's funny that, you go into that last game and you think about, it's going to be Corbin Burnes and Gavin Williams. It's going to be a great pitching matchup, and it was the opposite. Yeah. Corbin Burnes gave up 5 runs, I think, himself. So it's a shame that they score 5 runs against Corbin Burnes and don't win. Listen, you look at the Orioles lineup, even without Westberg, who's had a great season and is out for most of the year now. Like Jackson Holliday's their best prospect. He's batting 9th. If Jackson Holliday had come up to the big leagues with the Guardians, maybe he's batting 6th or 7th, and it just shows you the depth of the lineup that the Orioles have. And he struggled, I know, his first time up in the big leagues, but since he's come back up the second time, he's been a little better. It was already his second home run yesterday since he's been back. And I think the hope is that by the time we get to September, that Gavin Williams is in midseason form, right? And it's been the 2 months roughly. Because now it does feel like the mistakes are going to continue to happen. And as you said, I think it's a good point. The in-game adjustments, and he has struggled with that, and it just kind of all came apart with him. The walks have been a problem so far. He's averaging about, I think, over 3 walks per 9 innings, which is high. The hits per 9 aren't terrible for him, but he's made big mistakes in critical times. But ultimately, if he's got to be right by September and certainly October, because they're going to need him in the playoffs. There's no doubt about it. You mentioned it. Bibee's got the bulky shoulder. He said it's been bothering him all year. We don't know when he's going to pitch. He's pitched through it, and the other guys are coming off injury. So Gavin Williams is very important to this team. So we can live with some inconsistency right now. Hopefully by September, heading into the playoffs, he can, get that consistency. And because he could be a dominant lights out pitcher at some point, that's going to happen with him if he stays healthy. Hopefully it'll happen this year.
100%. And you saw it last year. This is how he pitched early on last season.
He did.
And the difference was that you'd see flashes of 98 miles an hour, but then it would be a lot of 94, 95. Late in his starts, it'd be 92. He couldn't hold this stuff. And then he made some mechanical tweaks. He got more reps. And by the end of the season, he was phenomenal. So I think that's all it is. I think in time, he'll be fine. But you want to see a progression there. And I also think just him facing that team who you very well might have to beat in October if you want to go where you want to go. And against Corbin Burnes, you said it. You score 5 runs against Corbin Burnes, you have to win that game.
Yep.
So especially the way that, they won the first 2 games of the series, it felt like they were playing with house money.
Right.
Just win one more, and that's so impressive.
Good news is the bats have been there, right? They've scored at least 4 runs in 7 games in a row, I think. So starting with the last game of the Philly series. And they really swung the bat well against Baltimore. So, if you play Baltimore in a playoff series, you faced their best pitcher already, and you scored 27 runs, I believe, in the series. So they're certainly not intimidated by the Orioles pitching, and the Orioles bullpen is not nearly as good as the Guardians pen.
I don't know that there's a team that they're gonna get matched up against in October where it's gonna feel like they don't stand a chance.
No, not at all. Definitely not.
Credit to them. Like they've
Yeah.
proven a lot to me, I know, over the last
Yeah.
10 days, the way they've played the Phillies and the Orioles. And again, it felt like they could have had another one against Baltimore. But
Yeah, you
even
want
with
it to,
that,
once you get the first two, you want to win that series. Even if you
exactly.
lose one of the final two.
Yep.
You want to take 3 out of 4. Then you're feeling great.
So, they're in a good spot. They have to keep going because the schedule's not easy, and the Twins and the Royals just will not go away. So, and the Bibee thing is important. They need him healthy. You're going to get Alex Cobb back here this week. Matthew Boyd, I think, is going to have one more rehab start. So the rotation is still the question, and that's still the biggest thing in figuring out how you get to the finish line of the regular season. But then the way they've played, and we've seen the formula, and you go look at Cade Smith's numbers if you need to.
Yeah.
Like once they get to October, they're as built for it as anybody.
Yes.
And I think they've reinforced that over the last couple of weeks.
No doubt. And I think there's a confidence level that you talk about. I think I wonder if part of that is in past years when they've won the division, the American League Central has been so bad.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the case now. I mean, yes, the White Sox are much worse than the Blue Jays. But first of all, it's a more balanced schedule. And if the season ended today, the Twins and Royals would both be wild card teams.
Yeah.
So you'd have 3 Central teams in the playoffs. I mean, that's been a while since that's happened. I don't remember the last year that has. But
I don't think ever.
Maybe, well, there you go. And it's not like, right now, the Royals are a half game back of the Twins. So the Royals hold the 3rd wild card. They got a 2.5 game lead over Boston. Now, it's only 1 in the loss column, but I think the Royals are as good as Boston. I think there's no reason why both the Twins and Royals couldn't make the playoffs. And there's got to be some confidence level in that from the Guardians saying, hey, the Yankees aren't playing tougher competition than we are. Okay, so the worst team in their division is better than the worst team in our division. That's fine. But the other 3 teams, it's competitive. Even the Tigers, as we've talked about, a competitive team. So
yeah, and I think it's important for the Guardians to get that first round bye too. First of all, you'd love to get the number 1 seed and have home field advantage,
right,
for the entirety of the playoffs. But that first round bye, we saw 2 years ago they had to play the Rays, and you used Bieber and McKenzie against Tampa, and that left you with Cal Quantrill versus Garrett Cole in game 1, and then I think again in game 4.
Mm-hmm.
So, in this scenario, if you had to do that, you're using, I don't know, Bibee and Williams in the wild card, or if you go a 3rd game, you got to use Cobb or Lively, and then it's game 1 if you advance against whomever, and you've got to go with your number 4 starter in game 1. Like it's so beneficial if you can just skip that, because it's a coin flip too. Best of 3 series, anything can happen, and line up your pitching, rest your bullpen, and go from there. I think that would be really beneficial.
Yeah,
they're in position to do that now, but as you said, you're gonna just have to hold off the Twins and the Royals. The good thing is one of Boston or Baltimore or New York will be a wild card team.
Yes,
and so you might only have to face one of them, or you should only have to face one.
Well, but let's think the wild card team would be the 4 seed, wouldn't they?
Well, So, but I'm saying theoretically. Well, yeah, I guess 4, 5.
Because I'm thinking in theory, let's say whoever wins the West is the 3 seed. Let's say.
I guess in my head when I was doing this math earlier in the season, I was assuming they wouldn't be the 1 and they'd be the 2, but then they caught Baltimore and New York. So, yeah, I guess you're right. They might have to
if they were the 2,
you might rather be the 2 seed then.
Well, it's tricky. Because if you're the 2, there's a good chance the Orioles and Yankees will play each other in the division series.
Mm-hmm.
But then whoever, if the division winner amongst those 2 wins and you play them, then they got home field advantage.
Right.
And I think especially Baltimore's one thing, especially against the Yankees. I think it's very important to have home field advantage, because I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what any player says. There is something about playing at Yankee Stadium that is intimidating.
100%.
I
remember talking to Will Brennan about that in 2022, because he had come up in like mid-September and he blinked. And next thing you know is he's at Yankee Stadium facing Garrett Cole in a playoff game. And he's
Right.
like, am I supposed to be here? I don't know.
Yeah. That's I know. Listen, they've had some experience now, but I don't want anything to do with a deciding game at Yankee Stadium. I don't like that at all. So even though it might mean they have to beat the Orioles and Yankees, I still want to have home field. Although it's tricky. It is funny in a way. The 1 seed kind of gets screwed because usually, and more often than not, the top wild card team is better than the third division winner, and which would be the case this year because clearly the Yankees and Orioles are both better than whoever wins the West.
But what could happen is you'd get Yankees Twins in the first round, and
yeah, we know what happens there. Let's get the comments from the fans here. Okay. Marty, I thought Vogt completely mismanaged the game on Saturday night, took the wind out of their sails, beginning with the pinch hitter of Bo Naylor in the 7th after he had just hit a 3-run bomb against the lefty. Yeah, what'd you think about that decision?
So there was a lefty on the mound. I understood it, but that's not the issue. The issue is how they've deployed their pitching. And I think what people need to realize is this all stems back to the rotation. When they win games, their bullpen is covering 4 or 5 innings. You can't use Cade Smith, Hunter Gaddis, and Tim Herron every single day.
That's right.
So you have to make a choice. The problem is if you would have a starting pitcher go 7, then you could go Gaddis 8th, Clase 9th, and you've still got Smith and Herron and everybody else for the next night. Right. But it takes all of those relievers to win 1 game.
Yeah.
So you can use them 2 nights in a row, but you can't do 3. They're not trying to burn these guys out right now.
No.
So they have to pick their spots to use Pedro Avila or Nick Sandlin or even Scott Barlow or Xavier Curry. And it's tough because you're down 1 run and it's like, can you use your better relievers here and try to keep it there? And then you could score some runs late. But if you're wrong and you just blew through all those guys, and then the next day when Corbin Burns is on the mound, and Gavin Williams is on the mound, and if you win, you're not blowing them out. It's going to be close. You want to have those good relievers available, but you wouldn't. So it's really tricky. And there have been some times where I'm like I even said Saturday night, I was like, Curry here, really? Still Curry here, really?
Yeah.
But I understand the problem is the rotation. They need more depth from the starters so that they don't have to there's a reason why teams, the Andrew Miller thing happened in the postseason. The Cade Smith pitching the 4th and 5th innings can't happen every night.
No.
Because otherwise you're using him way too much and he won't be available in October.
Yeah, and as you say, if their pitchers go 7 and you only use Gaddis and Clase, well, the next day you could use some of these other guys who have pitched great in the 7th inning, even if it's a 1-run, even if you're losing by 1 because you haven't had to overwork them. I can't blame him for the way he's used the pitching staff. Obviously, after the game, they sent Curry out. They sent Cantillo out. They called up 2 guys, to fill spots in the bullpen. And as you do that with the back end of the pen, you hopefully find another guy or 2 that maybe, starts pitching well when given the opportunity, and maybe he can pitch bigger innings as time goes by. But that's tricky. Chris says, I agree. Kenny deserves to be a Hall of Famer. Crack, seems like Vogt has chosen to punt a few times after the All-Star game, not giving the team a chance to come back, just like Saturday night. Managers never punt, but they've got to make decisions for the big picture once they're this late in the season. I think that's what's happening.
If you knew how Sunday's game would play out, he probably wouldn't have punted Saturday's game, but you don't have that foresight.
That's right. Let's see. B. Skrills, Jackson, Holiday, Gunnar Henderson tortured Gavin, and Eloy was playing like the 2021 White Sox all over again. Yeah, we'll see. John, bullpen did not hold up yesterday. Nick Sandlin's been inconsistent. He has. I mean, that's fair. There have been some cracks here and there in the bullpen, but for the most part, the key guys, Smith and Gaddis, certainly, and we know what Clase has been.
They need Hench's back, which should happen in the next couple of days. So that'll help too.
All right. Let's see. We got anything else? All right. Let's wrap it up here with we'll what's coming up for the Guardians before we're back on the air next week. The Guardians playing the Arizona Diamondbacks the next few days. Game tonight is at 6:40. The pitching matchups for this series, we've got Logan Allen getting called up to make the start against Zach Gallen. Zach Gallen's a really good pitcher. Tomorrow, Ben Lively against to be determined for the Diamondbacks.
I think that's Eduardo Rodriguez.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He's coming off the injured list. That's his first start of the year, I think.
Yeah.
And then Thursday afternoon, Carlos Carrasco against Brandon Pfaadt. Great name. And then the day off before they go to Minnesota.
This is a sneaky difficult series.
Arizona's good. I mean, they were just in the World Series last year. I know they haven't been as good this year.
They had a really good July. You're getting 3 very capable starting pitchers, so work's cut out for him.
Yeah. Brandon Pfaadt is actually how you pronounced it, but it looks like Fat, so I like to call it Fat as a fat man. And next Friday, by the way, or this coming Friday, we'll do our next show, but that'll be right before it. We're going to have to figure out a time there. I don't know if we figured it out yet because the Guardians have a doubleheader next Friday in Minnesota, with the first game being at 2:10, the second game being at 8:10. So big games coming up this week. I mean, Arizona's good. Minnesota, that's going to be a huge series next weekend, Zach.
It is. Twins are at Wrigley facing your Cubs the next few days. So yeah, then you get 4 games in 3 days. You'll probably get Alex Cobb back for one of those starts.
Yeah.
Tanner Bibee for one of those starts. So it's going to be interesting. A lot on the line.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, as you said, you think he's coming back against Minnesota. That would be big. And if he comes out there and pitches well, we'll all feel fine. If he goes out there and struggles, well, let's hope that doesn't happen. All right, that's going to do it for the Ultimate Cleveland Guardians show today. Thanks to everybody for watching. We'll let you know about the time for Friday's show. We'll figure it out with Zach's schedule because he's going to be traveling to Minnesota for that big 4-game and 3-day series. We'll talk to you all next time. Where else but right here on the Ultimate Cleveland Guardians show.